together is to inspire people to take leadership. This is really, we don't want it to be a conversation about the gay community only, but how that impacts the greater context of our society, our humanity. And so two words that struck out for me were drawing parallels between different communities and also about changing laws. If there's one thing that we did see and I'm sorry, let me get back to one thing. Harvey Milk actually was only in office for 1 year, and he did so much during that time. So my question to the panel is, what did Harvey Milk do that inspired so many people and actually created that change, that we can take that as a model and bring that to our communities, whether you're gay, you're straight, you're African American, Chinese, whatever it may be, that you can take those same principles and apply them. So my question is, what did Harvey Milk do and why was he so effective?
The first thing Harvey Milk did was, I love this quote here which exemplifies that. He said, "Hope is not enough, but without hope we will not succeed." And I would like to define hope as the longing for a better world and the faith that we can actually build it. And if we didn't have that kind of hope, we can't make change. So that's the first thing he gave us, is hope. And not just to the gay community and LGBT community, but to all of us who struggle for a better world, for more justice. The second thing is he showed us how to build coalitions. While he was on the Board of Supervisors, he could actually vote for things that Dan White, his constituency, needed in exchange for other things that his community needed. So that's another thing, is how to work politics by not ever forgetting your core values. Don't compromise your core values. But on certain issues, you have to be able to work things out with other people on the board itself. And of course, I mean, there's so much to show that he gave us. I mean, look how he went forward after losing the love of his life, the first love. The boyfriend that he had, who left him because he kept running for office and losing. But he didn't lose. He said, this is much more than just about me winning, it's about the movement, am I right? That's what he gave us, that politics is about a movement, and it should be that way for every election, not just the election of Harvey Milk. I hope other politicians will see that, those running for office, that they're standing for ideals that are going to outlive them. And it's not just about winning at any cost. And that's what I think he gave us a lot about. So that's pretty much, I mean, there's a few things that Harvey Milk gave us, so I'm sure there's a lot more, but I don't want to monopolize the time right here. Thank you.
I think the most important thing that Harvey Milk did, I mean, if you were critically hard on Harvey Milk, you realize he was a supervisor in a single city for about a year. You know, he passed a significant ordinance and was instrumental in the No on Briggs initiative. But what he did more than anything else, I think, was to empower our community and have us for the first time believe that we could take care of ourselves. I moved from the Midwest to San Francisco and arrived in 1981, about 2 years after Harvey was assassinated. And while it was a drastically more liberal place than where I came from, you could see that there was a sense of confusion and aimlessness almost, and this sense of fear setting in with the AIDS epidemic starting, and those were really bizarre times that I like to describe, at the risk of sounding melodramatic, by using the word Han, which is a Korean word that doesn't have an exact English translation, but roughly it means a sadness and sorrow so profound and so deep that tears can no longer come. And that's what our community was experienced for almost a decade as a whole generation was wiped out. And I think because of Harvey Milk, it allowed our community, when we waited for the response to come, the government response and the money for education and outreach and the things that were necessary to fight the epidemic, all we heard was a deafening silence. And it was our community that had to roll up our sleeves and do for ourselves, because there was no one there to help us. And it was lesbians who were the least affected by AIDS who did exactly that. They set aside their careers, they set aside their lives, and they became caregivers and fundraisers. And we built the movement in Washington with HRC and National Gay and Lesbian Task Force and ACT UP, and then we began building at the state level. And we did all that because we finally believed in ourselves, and I think that's the single most important thing that Harvey did. As a practical matter, he was important, but as an inspirational matter, there was a time and a place, everything lined up, and it gave us the tools to survive what was a Holocaust for 10 years.
You're gonna make me cry. So one of the things that I really feel that Harvey Milk did the best was he took action, and not only just within himself, like Jeff was saying, but he did empower the people, and he took it to the streets, and not just in protests and in marches, but he stood out on the street corners and he talked to people about his beliefs and why it was important, and why electing him into the office was important, and what he was actually going to do in the movement. And that his issues weren't just LGBT or gay issues, but that his issues were important as a whole to everyone else, and that he was going to look out for all of his coalition partners who he had worked hard for. And also the coalition building aspect. Nobody can do anything alone, absolutely, and whether it's an LGBT issue or any sort of civil rights issue, you have to have partnerships with other organizations that are like-minded, like unions, like ethnic and immigration laws. And so there are a lot of ways that you can coalition build with those aspects. One of the things that we're really focused on here in Orange County especially is faith organizations that are supportive. There are at least 15 to 20 churches alone that I know of in Orange County that support LGBT rights. And those are definite coalition partners that we can partner with and work towards and educate people that are faith-based organizations that aren't supportive, and go out and knock on doors and tell people, like, look, you're a person of faith, it may be, you know, you're a conservative Christian and I'm a Universalist, but let's talk about it, let's have a conversation. So those are some of the biggest aspects that I took from Harvey Milk.
Thank you very much. So I'd like to at this time open, we put a suggestion box and we requested people to put questions in there. There are two questions that are here from the audience, and I'd like to request two additional people from what you've heard from our panel would like to ask a question specifically to one or two of our panelists. You're welcome to do that. But, so I'll get to the questions that we have, the two questions that we have right now, and then open it to two more. And we'll have 2 minutes for this. How did the Black civil rights movement and the activism of Martin Luther King Jr. influence the politics of Harvey Milk and his goal to achieve equality for homosexuals?
I think I'm sure we all need to add to this, but the 2 points that I want to raise is, first, I think the civil rights movement and Martin Luther King and the many people who came before him gave people language with which to talk about what was happening to them, and I think that's something that we definitely in the LGBT movement have taken and have used, is that we now have words like civil rights to be able to talk about what we're lacking or the ways in which society is treating us differently. And I think second of all, I mean, Martin Luther King was also a great coalition builder. As someone who's from the Jewish faith, like, there were lots of Jews who were down, registering voters and that sort of thing. And I think Martin Luther King definitely recognized the need to get other people into your cause and say, you know, we can't do this alone. And I think that's also not recognizing that's a weakness, but necessarily seeing that as a strength and a necessary step.
I would just add that, I mean, in both aspects, it's a movement, it's a power of the people, and really taking one individual and bringing a community and a sense of togetherness around that one person. And really, the Martin Luther King and the Civil Rights Act just paved the way and led the way for other LGBT and any other activism or movement.